it's Cassandra Smith, your Las Vegas real estate professional, back again with your bow tie escrow guy, Anthony.
Hello, everybody.
So, Anthony, thank you again for having me back and for being willing to share all of your wisdom on escrow and all things title.
Cassandra, it's always my pleasure to share my escrow knowledge with the world, so thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. So tell me, today we're going to talk about vesting. Like, people use that word when we tell our clients, you have to give vesting instructions. They're like, what's that? So tell us about that.
Sure. So the vesting is going to be the formal way that you actually own or are recognized with the county as the owner of the property. So there's a couple different ways that you can actually vest the property, whether it's individually, jointly with somebody else, or even in an entity like an LLC, a corporation, or even a trust. So lots of different options available for you.
So if it's just me and I'm unmarried, how would I take vesting traditionally?
Sure. So as an individual, you have two options there. The first option being, have you ever been married? If never married, then you would take a single status. If you have previously been married and say things just didn't happen to work out and you're now single or unmarried again, you would take an unmarried vesting.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if I'm married and we're happily in bliss?
Perfect. So that is great news, first and foremost. You have the options of doing a community property. Community property with rights of survivorship, which emphasizes if one of the surviving parties, if one of the spouses were to pass, that the surviving party does get awarded the ownership of the property. The other option could be is if you wanted to take it separately, which would be having your spouse remove their interest by executing a grantee, which would grant you a married person, man or woman, as sole and separate property. The other options available are going to be joint tenants, which is a very common one here in the state of Nevada as well.
Okay. So with rights of survivorship, you were explaining that the surviving person does have ownership of the property if one spouse becomes deceased?
That is correct, yeah. So that is also extended for a joint tenancy vesting. So whether or not it is explicitly expressed in the vesting, the with rights of survivorship, or just the joint tenancy, it would apply in both scenarios for Nevada.
So in this day and age of blended families, how would one take ownership, or a married couple that may have children or ex-spouses or what have you, how would they take ownership to be able to protect either interest, either side?
So one good way of asset protection is setting up a long-term protection is through trust. With that, you can set up the succession of ownership. So if anything happens to your original trustee, there should be a successor that would come in and then kind of take the realm of the trust at that point in time and be your executor on paperwork.
Now, if we're just two people that are not married, say friends, and we buy a home together, what would be the best way to take title or vest the home in that case?
So you would have two options available to you in that scenario. Again, one being a joint tenancy, which you would both essentially have 100% ownership rights. In that situation, again, if something were to happen to one of the parties, the surviving party would retain the ownership of the property. The other option that would be available is dividing up that interest, taking a tenancy in commons, at which point, if say it was you and I that were taking a tenancy in commons, you would have 50%, I would have 50%, or 75-25, however it's allocated there.
Okay.
But again, it would be explicit in the vesting, the percentage of ownership that each party has. At that point, that party can act individually for their vested ownership.
Okay. Now, when it comes to trust and wills and things like that, we hear that all the time, and how all these famous people died without a will or any type of trust. How do we go about getting that taken care of, and then making sure our property that we own is titled properly for that?
Absolutely. So, unfortunately, I don't have the ability of assisting with drafting or preparing a new trust, a will, or any sort of entity paperwork. But if you do have all the paperwork already drafted, we'd be happy to close and vest you in the entity that's already been set up with your attorney or CPA, whoever's assisting you with your asset prevention or protection for the property. So again, we would be able to assist with the recording of the paperwork. We would review the paperwork to ensure we are dealing with the appropriate principals for the entity, obtaining the appropriate signatures needed to complete the vesting as requested.
All right, okay. So you guys work closely with attorneys, it sounds like.
We do. And if you are interested in setting up a trust, we do have some attorneys that we work with closely. We'd be happy to prefer some referrals to you.
Great. Now, is there any information or documentation that we can share with those that might be interested in learning about what vesting is and just kind of being able to read that?
Absolutely. So we do have a great vesting instruction that does give some explanation to each of the vestings available that we've kind of briefly discussed today. I'd be happy to share that with you, possibly set it up as a link for this video for you guys.
Perfect. Well, you get a treat. But that's who Anthony is. So we're grateful for your education and sharing all of your knowledge. Tell you, this guy is so smart. I just am just so impressed all the time, every time I work with him. So thank you so much, Anthony. Anything else you'd like to leave us with?
You know what? Just have a great Friday, happy weekend, and we're always available, so feel free to call us anytime.
Great. The information is below. If you do have any questions, I'm happy to answer questions as well, or put you in contact with Anthony and his team so we can make a great escrow smooth and easy for you. Have a wonderful day.
See you next time.